Welcome to 49ers Coffee Talk. We're your host, Cohn and Sybilla Bakzaza. It's been a few weeks. You've been gone. You've been injured. You're back on the scene.
Yes.
And good timing because there's big freaking news. Everyone's been waiting for Deshaun Watson to get traded so that Jimmy might get traded. Well, Deshaun Watson just got traded to Cleveland. To me, this is not good news for the 49ers because it means that the Colts, who are the number one suitors for Jimmy, are going to be able to choose between Jimmy and Baker Mayfield. And to me, that's an easy decision. Sybilla, what's on your mind with this?
Yeah, suddenly this Jimmy Garoppolo market, I know everyone was positive about it to begin with, but it doesn't look very good right now. Mm-hmm. And I know some people don't like the fact he had his shoulder surgery, and they think that impacts this, and it definitely does. But as someone who is injured, I would definitely get surgery before not. So I don't read into that with Jimmy. But as far as the market goes, it's late. There's a draft coming up. There will be plenty of teams are starting to fill out their quarterbacks, and they're not the only team that's traded. People like the Broncos have traded. You know, the Washington football team has a direction now. So all of a sudden, it's the 49ers who have themselves over a barrel, not the other way around. So at this point, it's starting to look like you're going to dump Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. And when you go into it with this mindset, you're not going to get trade value.
Right. It's like all of a sudden the Colts have all the leverage, right? They have two quarterbacks they can choose between. And the Niners have one team they can trade Jimmy Garoppolo to. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, we were going to hold out and get more from Indianapolis. Now you're calling Indianapolis be like, oh, man, we'll take anything. Just don't take Baker Mayfield. I think this is bad. I think now it's Indianapolis going to be like, well, you can like play teams off each other. And call it, well, we can get Baker for a 2. We could get Baker for this. What are you going to give? Like, what are you going to offer Jimmy for? Just wait till someone keeps driving down the price. What do you think?
I think at this point, honestly, we are looking to trade Jimmy Garoppolo for a thank you, essentially, just because we need to get rid of that cap space. And that's the thing is that everyone knows the 49ers have to do that. They have no hands in this whatsoever. And a lot of teams could just call them up and say, let's see when he's throwing. Let's see how the shoulder surgery goes, even though he's supposed to, be doing pretty well with it. And it's just there are so many intangibles against getting a first or second rounder. I just don't see how it can possibly happen at this point.
Matt Barrows, who covers the 49ers for The Athletic, he's great, has reported that it's Indianapolis or no one for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I can understand that.
Indianapolis
I can understand
or no
why
one.
he would say that.
And so now this is, if Indianapolis would prefer Baker Mayfield, I would prefer Baker Mayfield. That's the right choice for them. Then the Niners basically don't have a trade market for Jimmy Garoppolo, and they can keep him for another year. That's what
Baker lines up with Jimmy Garoppolo in several ways that the Jimmy camp pumps him up. One is locker room mentality. Baker was not necessarily a gel with Odell, but for the rest of the locker room, he's been pretty humble for the most part. So I think he lines up decently with Jimmy there. But there are some things where he is better than Jimmy. I just think the upside, the potential of Baker Mayfield at this point to kick the tires on him is something that might interest someone like Indianapolis a little bit more. And Jimmy Garoppolo, he has massive, massive health question marks. You don't give up first and second rounders for that, even as a bridge quarterback. No one's loaded to the teeth with first-round picks in this league. There's no sense to give it up for him.
So the next question is, so Deshaun Watson has gone to the Browns. When will Jimmy Garoppolo get traded? And I think a lot of people were saying, well, when the Deshaun Watson domino falls in, Jimmy's up next. I don't look at it that way, Sybilla. It seems to me like Baker Mayfield is up now. And every team is going to be waiting on to see where he goes. And then Jimmy Garoppolo could be up after that. So I don't know. Like, I'm on vacation over here. Do you think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get traded while I'm on vacation the next 2 days, or is it going to be Baker Mayfield first?
I think it's Baker Mayfield first because I think the teams are very similar as far as just a great running offense and everything. I think you can see the spread between the two of them and realize that Baker's a little bit more durable than Jimmy. I think everyone's a little bit more durable than Jimmy. I just don't see how you can sell it to your fan base at this point when you've whiffed essentially on Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson and you didn't get one of these household names, one of these elite tier quarterbacks, and you go with Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. That doesn't sell well to me. If I'm a Colts fan, I want there to be upside to the trade. I don't want to just kind of bring in a pedestrian level quarterback who has health issues.
Yeah.
And Jimmy has upside. He does. He has zip. He has quick release. But there are O-line issues in Indianapolis, and I think it needs the mobility of Baker Mayfield. They have a great O-line, I believe, when it comes to the run, but when it comes to the pass, not so much. It's one of the worst. So all of a sudden, Jimmy Garoppolo is not an attractive fit with that.
Yeah, and the thing with Jimmy, like, he's not the same Jimmy he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. He doesn't throw the ball down the field anymore. Like, you could call it, he won't throw it. He won't look that way. Ask Brandon Ayuk. Ask Kyle Shanahan. I think it's a big deal breaker. It is, I think, mostly because he missed Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl. It's a mental
that was life altering. I mean, that defines his career.
No question. And so Baker doesn't have that baggage. Baker will cut it loose. Baker's not great, but he doesn't limit you the way that Jimmy Garoppolo does. I don't see how a team picks Jimmy over Baker. And now it's looking bad for the Niners, because if Indianapolis trades for Baker today, what do the Niners do? Back to the drawing board?
They have to gone his contract. That's the only thing they can do.
Yeah. So when will Jimmy Garoppolo get traded? Maybe the better question is, will he get traded at all? Or will they release him, or will they keep him?
The worst case scenario is that they don't trade him, but they cut him. To me, I think that's the worst thing that they could possibly do, to get nothing. But I just don't see the point of carrying his cap hits and just trying to. I mean, the Rams are going to lose and have lost some pieces as far as, like, will they bring Von Miller back? I haven't seen any updates on that. Will Von Miller go back to, Denver or something like that? But the bottom line is that they are still actually adding pieces. So they got a pretty good wide receiver recently that I think is a pretty good rotational piece for them. And this attacks the Niners where they're weakest. So if the Niners are not going to use this Jimmy Garoppolo money to bring in free agents or things like that, the Niners aren't getting better while some of their competitors are. Now, some of their competitors are sinking rock bottom, but still, I don't see them keeping pace by keeping Jimmy.
I don't think they care about keeping pace. I think we've read the situation all wrong. I don't think the Niners feel like they're going to go all in this year. A lot of other teams are. The Niners don't know what they have at quarterback, and they're pretty much saying, you know what, we'll bring in Trevarius Ward, but other than that, we're not going to do anything too crazy. We'll still be in the middle. Still an excellent team, but this is not our year to make a big push like they did in 2019. That's the way I read it.
Without a doubt, I was not a fan of losing Tomlinson.
There's no upgrade in sight. No upgrade in sight.
Honestly, to me, that's not a favor to Trey Lance. That is certainly the writing on the wall. Is if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, if I'm Jimmy Garoppolo at this point, I'm like, there's no way I'm going out behind that line the way it is right now until they actually make some. And I know they're bringing in other pieces and such, but
they're more focused on the future than the present. They're more focused on the future than the present. They're thinking about getting picks for Jimmy down the line, like not about getting cap space now. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about 2-3 years down the line. Seriously.
They're not going to get a trade package that actually empowers them to get picks 2 or 3 years down the line. If you get rid of Jimmy, all you will get is something this year. That's it.
Yeah. I don't know if
so he doesn't have he's not an attractive option right now, and it's definitely concerning. And like I said, a lot of people think that he did his shoulder surgery to debunk the 49ers' hands. And I mean, that's possible that he did that. But on the other hand, if I'm from his perspective, looking at it through his eyes, I want surgery to get as healthy as possible, as soon as possible.
So when will Jimmy Garoppolo get traded? I think it's possible that if Baker Mayfield goes to the Colts, that Jimmy Garoppolo won't get traded, that the market for him will be non-existent, and the Niners' choice will be cut him and get $17.5 million in salary cap space that's kind of a little late to use, or keep him and refuse to admit that you lost on the trade. I think that's what they're going to do. If Baker Mayfield goes to Indianapolis, I think Jimmy stays here another year. I don't think they'll cut him. I think they'll hold on to him as a backup or whatever, and they'll let last season happen all over again. Jimmy will become the starter, and they'll just do it all over again with a worse left guard, a worse strong safety, a worse nickel back, and a better number one corner. That's what they'll do.
Yeah, that's not a very good prospect. That's for certain. I was hoping that we could push him to a team like the Steelers or something like that early on. I wish we had been able to jump on a trade a month ago or something like that, or even further back. Like right as the offseason began, I was really hoping that Jimmy could pair himself with a trade, but then he went for surgery, and I think that really derailed the whole process for the Niners.
Brandon Lee says if Matt Ryan goes to the Colts, Jimmy Garoppolo to Atlanta. Why would they want him?
I don't know why Ryan would go to Indianapolis, but if for whatever reason that happens, I could definitely see them targeting Jimmy, but I just don't see how the first part of that happens.
Seahawks and Panthers have interest in Mayfield. So I
Now
guess
that's another thing.
Yeah.
Is Seattle. I laughed to myself when I saw Russell Wilson leave because I lose no sleep over that. But I was thinking to myself, it'd be hilarious if Jimmy went to Seattle. I just don't see it happening inter-division trade like that of a franchise or bridge quarterback, however you want to look at him. But it would be really funny if he ended up there. Mayfield going there, I could see Mayfield and Pete Carroll might be a pretty good marriage.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll has a huge personality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. He could do that. And if those teams drive up the price and the Colts don't get Baker Mayfield, they feel he's too expensive, maybe they have to take Jimmy Garoppolo.
And I think the point they were making right there is that the market might still be competitive with 2 or 3 teams left.
Yeah. V says, why is Baker's upside better than Jimmy? He had really good talent around him and still went nowhere. Maybe Rex Ryan is correct on Baker. I think he went to a championship game 2 years ago when they had Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. Baker Mayfield threw 26 touchdown passes and 8 picks. That's 3-1. Jimmy's never done anything like that. And he's younger, and he throws deep. So, boom. That's the answer.
Yeah, the other thing is the upside to Jimmy Garoppolo is that he stays healthy. That's not a good upside to begin with. And that's another thing that Baker has over him. He's had some injuries, but I just feel like he's a tougher quarterback than Jimmy.
And more mobile. Kent says Niners equals cheap. Sorry, am I wrong? No, I mean, they spent a lot on to get Trey Lance. They spent a lot on Jimmy Garoppolo. They spent a lot on D Ford. They're just telling you they're not making a push this year. And we all thought they would. I guess they think it's not their year.
If you're over the cap or near the cap, you cannot be cheap. You may not have spent your money correctly, but the Niners are not cheap. Absolutely.
Can you say hello to Moe? He's your biggest fan. Hello, Moe.
Hi, Moe.
I'm your biggest fan. All right, so that's all we need. That's all we know about Deshaun Watson and Jimmy Garoppolo at this time. It all depends on Indianapolis. If they get Baker Mayfield, that's bad news. If they don't, that's good news for the 49ers. All right. The Niners just signed George Odom. I didn't know who he was when they signed him. He was an all-pro special teamer. He started 10 games at safety. So my first reaction is the Niners are going to start Talanoa Hufanga next year at strong safety. They are not bringing it. I mean, this guy will compete with them. He started 10 games, but they didn't bring this guy in to start. Like, that's wild to me because Jaquiski Tartt is better than Talanoa Hufanga, and they're willing to go downgrade, which is strange. I mean, a team that's in the NFC Championship game, that close to going to the Super Bowl, you think was just like trying to find marginal upgrades here and there. But no, they're really content, it looks like, to start Talanoa Hufanga at strong safety. Wow. What do you think about and it's not just that, right? It's like Aaron Banks is going to be a starter next year too. Based on what? Aaron Banks. And I guess if you're really cynical, you could say the same thing about the quarterback. Like, really, you're just going to go to Trey Lance? What has he shown you? So it seems like the Niners are taking a leap of faith on a lot of young guys this year, which is a 180. Like, they didn't trust any young guys last year. It was Josh Norman Central last year. This is crazy to me. What do you think?
On the positive side, perhaps they have learned from their mistakes. Perhaps this will be a growth year as an organization and as far as the coaches go. Perhaps they're like, look, we can't just spend in free agency and bring a Super Bowl caliber team together around a rookie quarterback. Because if it doesn't work, we are shafted the next year when he should take a leap forward. But if he wants to go out and have himself a Patrick Mahomes style year, more power to him. We'll win a Super Bowl with it. But I think the Niners are looking at this as it's a prayer that we win our division. It's a prayer that we go deep into the postseason, let alone get to a Super Bowl game.
And it was improbable that they made it that far last year. They were 3-5 last year. They had to go on a crazy run. Yep.
Absolutely. And they were beating teams that had thumped them earlier in the year. So that was incredible. Some people might say, let's build off that. But I think the Niners are realizing, no, we have to let some pieces go in order to, a year from now, be able to bring other pieces back in. The other thing is the draft and everything. The Niners have gotten some good value picks from the 5th round on, historically, even like undrafted free agents. It's very possible that, yes, they bring in a special teamer like this because our special teams was miserable. It's a weakness. Ray McLeod was brought in as a ST returner, basically, an ace for that. A rotational receiver if necessary. So you've got that guy there, and you've got this guy coming in. That, to me, that checks the boxes on special teams. I think that's one of the motivations. The other one is I think in the draft, the Niners will actually be drafting a safety. I do, absolutely.
Okay.
Not high, but I foresee a safety in anywhere from maybe the 3rd round on. More likely the 4th round on.
Okay. All right. Well,
so I think that's
better.
what they're doing.
But they also have Trevarius Ward too. Don't forget about him. They have guys, and they're going to give him a chance. I don't know. I think
chance is not always the best thing, but I think it goes back to what I'm saying. You can't just get free agents to come in here and win for Trey Lance. You need him to win as well. And if he does, this team goes far. If not, then you will have just wasted money. And so last year we were barking about the fact they were not giving Lenoir and Thomas and Banks and Sermon reps or Lance reps, however. And we feel it retarded their progress. And so here we are this year having to go out and run them out there in mass and hope that they can get the experience. So really, we could be a Super Bowl caliber team next year, the year after, and be competitive in, say, the 4th and 5th year.
Yeah.
They have to do this. I think it's wise.
Nathan says this is a firing offense for Kyle and John, keeping Jimmy, not freeing $25 million to help with the signings and Debo and Bo's extensions. Yeah, man, I don't get it. Like when the Chiefs transitioned from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes, they traded Alex Smith first thing in the offseason. They used that cap space to sign Sammy Watkins. They backed their quarterback, and they'd only seen one start from Patrick Mahomes. The Niners are like, we're going to need – to me, it's like a very conservative fear of the unknown. Like, you got to take a leap of faith and give this guy the best supporting cast possible, and they're going to have $27 million on the bench as his backup. That's not fair. And really, it wasn't fair to Jimmy last year to have a first-round pick on the bench. Like, you need to commit to a quarterback and give him a chance to have the best team possible.
Jimmy Garoppolo with a high-drafted offensive lineman that could have contributed, we might have gone to the Super Bowl.
Right. It's not fair.
Trey Lance playing last year, we might go to the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
You might see more spending. You might see different draft needs addressed and things like that. This is, I agree with you. It's really weird that when you look at how the Chiefs committed to Mahomes, why are you spending so much draft capital that, by the way, we could have used this year to bolster Jimmy? I do actually believe that a superstar team around it, a Bob Greasy or whatever, can go to a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo's been there. So I don't like having him over Trey Lance, but I can see how you can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see the point of having them together.
No, it's like the Niners have been searching for a second-round pick or 2 second-round picks for Jimmy Garoppolo for 12 months, a calendar year, and they're going to make it 2. Crazy to me. Also, they could get a couple of second-round picks. Great. While the Rams are getting Allen Robinson and all these teams are getting like all pros left and right, the Niners are going to get a couple of 2s, and that's going to be the big payoff after 2 years of wasting this cap space. Like 2 2s? Whoop-de-freaking do. Teams are making much bigger moves than that. That's not a game changer. I'm sorry.
No, and it really affects the draft strategy as well, because they're gonna have to bundle. I do think they are going to have to trade up, and that puts a lot of pressure on that pick as well as getting it correct. And if they whiff on that, then they're even further set back. A lot of pressure going into this draft.
Elijah says Jimmy Garoppolo, the Panthers, they only have Sam Darnold and Cam Newton. This would happen, but I doubt it. The best place for him is the Colts. I don't see why the Panthers would want Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, why I don't know. I don't see that at all.
They don't seem particularly sold on Sam Darnold. I mean, they'd have to axe both those options and completely commit to Jimmy as a bridge and draft someone. And that's possible.
They still have Darnold, though. And now you're going to bring in more money at quarterback? I'm tripping. I don't know. Don't they get rid of Jimmy in order to extend Debo and Bosa? Maybe they don't have to. Maybe they don't have to. I don't know. Doesn't seem like they want to.
He might have something up his sleeve. He's really good at this kind of thing. But again, I don't think it's just about freeing up the cap for the extensions. I think it's freeing up the cap in general for having some mobility and flexibility with your roster. There's just no point of having 2 basically franchise quarterbacks on a team. Carrying that does not make sense. Not at this point. And the thing is, what are they going to do? Are they going to roll out sub packages for Trey Lance? They didn't do it last year. So we can't have another year of that. If Trey Lance doesn't mix in with Jimmy because they keep Jimmy, then I would start looking at him as a forcible draft bust to make him sit on the bench for 2 years and not get mixed in So that means that Jimmy will just be sitting there, I hope, doing nothing.
Yeah.
For 25 million. I mean, that's a pretty good job.
It's the best. Let's get positive for a minute, though. The Niners signed Trevarius Ward. You're a big fan. What do you see from Trevarius Ward? Why do you like this signing?
He has a lot of value, and he doesn't necessarily jump off the screen as a household name, but I've got some statistics right here that I'd like to quote. This one comes from PFF, and since 2019. Now, this one is important to me because he actually gets targeted a lot. It was over 17% of his snaps, and yet the tight window percentage was the highest in the NFL. In addition to that, the completion percentage was the lowest in the NFL. That goes against people like J.C. Jackson, Casey Hayward, Jair Alexander, and Denzel Ward. That sounds pretty good to me right there. So that alone to me kind of sold that to me. But I think one of the domino effects of this trade actually goes back to Ambry Thomas and the fact that it will allow Ward can kick inside if he needs to. He can take over the duties that allow you to play sub packages that you can line Thomas up with more favorable matchups now. So you can develop him better while putting the lion's share on Mosley and on Ward. So these are your running mates now. And this allows you, I feel, to develop your rookie corners or your second-year corners a whole lot more effectively. I think that Thomas has a lot of physical upside. So why not allow him to play to his strengths while you have somebody who's taking on your number 1 or number 2 wide receiver? He travels all over as well, so he doesn't have to just lock down one side. If we were some reason to have injuries, he's a guy who's played literally every corner position. That is something I think that made him really attractive to the San Francisco 49ers. The other thing is we got lit up by the wide receiver core in the championship game of the Rams. I mean, they just stomped the 49ers secondary. There was no way to put. I mean, everybody did something wrong in that game. So he's matched up against some pretty good guys last year, including A.J. Brown. The combination of A.J. and Brown and Julio Jones in Week 7 gave up 18 yards. I'll take that. Devontae Adams, 14 yards in Week 9. Week 11, CeeDee Lamb for 5. Keenan Allen for 0 and 15. The only bad game he had all year was Jamar Chase. And that was for 83 yards in Week 17. But he got a second chance at him in the championship game. He gave up 22 yards. He's the guy who makes adjustments. He's the guy who knows how to play different kinds of coverages, different packages, things like that. He's very athletic, and he's aggressive. He has a nose for the football as well. He's a guy who has blips on the radar, like that Week 17 game, and comes back and locks somebody down on the biggest stage. So this is a really good signing for San Francisco. And they got him for 3 years. And this first year, he might make the adjustment to the team. I think he comes in hot. I think he plays well. But hopefully, as we build a high caliber team between now and the next year of his contract, hopefully he gets 2 shots at a Super Bowl with us, because this is a really good piece for us.
Here's what confuses me, though. So the Niners said they were interested in J.C. Jackson. He was too expensive. They signed Trevarius Ward, but $14 million a year, that's a big investment. And then they were interested in Chandler Jones, didn't get him. I think we all expected, okay, they got Trevarius Ward. He wasn't the number 1 corner on the market, but he's expensive. He's a big move. Here the Niners go. They're going all in. And then they haven't. Since they got Ward, they've just been focused on special teams. It's like, what was the point of giving Trevarius Ward a 3-year deal worth $14 million if you're just going to stop there? I don't get it.
When it happened, I thought that the Jimmy was a trade or a cut was imminent, something to get rid of his cap space so that they could have more to pursue other players, but it did not happen. I don't know if
the Niners' plan was to get one big signing this offseason. That was the whole plan. Look at the rest of the league is going crazy. And they got Trevarius Ward, good player in a vacuum, but that's the whole offseason. And it's a type of an all-in move. You're giving them a lot of money. It's not a 5-year deal, it's a 3-year deal. I don't know.
It is very strange to invest in a guy in the first year when you don't expect to compete.
Right.
Or it's very possible that the Niners look at their team and think that they can compete. Maybe they think they're going to be so much better with the team they have right now. And maybe they feel that is really the only weakness they have. They have a lot of weaknesses on the O-line and in the secondary, but I would have to say that they seem to think this was a good move as far as the financial as far as the player's caliber, it was an excellent move. But as far as managing the cap, I'm not so sure.
I'm cynical, though. I feel like you just do one big move and say, okay, we're being aggressive, and then it gets the fans and the media off your back when you spend the rest of free agency signing special teamers and not trading Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like, well, we got Ward. Ward was a big move. That's a lot of people want Yaha, and you did nothing else. That's all you did. Crazy. It's almost like insulation from criticism. We got Ward. We got freaking
I don't
Ward.
think that there's any fan out there that's not going to criticize keeping Jimmy Garoppolo at this point. So I don't think they're going to get some kind of free pass with the press or the people. I hope. I think it's pretty obvious that they have to move him. And maybe in a couple of weeks from now or after the draft, he gets cut. I don't know, but they have to get rid of him. They absolutely do.
Max says Odom hasn't missed a game in 4 years. Big plus. Hey, that's great. He's a special team guy. Got to have him around. 5-star Hustler says Lance has been put in the most toxic work environment ever. No way he feels welcome.
I don't know if he does not feel not welcome. Losing Tomlinson definitely is not the right message, but maybe they've got something in their plans for the draft. I really hope they don't like blow every draft pick they have on getting an O-lineman when we do need a corner. And that's the one thing I have. I was a little concerned with the money that went to Ward because this is the 49ers way of saying we no longer need to draft a corner. And then 3 years from now, we would be right back here talking about what's wrong with these first-year products coming out of Oregon or whatever else and why we can't compete against the Rams wide receiver core.
TN707 quotes Andre Nicotina. I'm not going to say it. It's a little much. But the second sentence is, at this point, I'd rather see him cut than continue being hamstrung. I agree.
I agree with the second sentence, yes.
Martin L. says, we love your OnlyFans Sybilla.
Thank you.
The Logical Truth says, just curious, what power ranking would you give the 49ers with their offseason acquisitions? Power ranking in the league right now? I would say they're somewhere between 5 and 10 in the best 5 and 10 best teams in the league. Very good team, even with Talanoa Hufanga in the starting lineup. Hufanga.
There you go.
Couple more. Hyder just got released. Bring him back. Sure. Couldn't hurt.
I guess it's a depth piece. I guess. Yeah, I could see that. I think I'd rather have some other people though. But yeah.
Demontre says we have to let some of our rookies this year grow. Going out and signing free agents to replace them is not helping their growth. Thomas got better with time, and now they just replaced Thomas. The one rookie who doesn't get a free pass.
Not sure if I am frozen, but he is frozen on my screen. So yeah, definitely, Demontre, I definitely agree with what you are saying there. It will stink that Thomas doesn't get the playing time, but at the same time, yeah, so he's gone. We'll wait for him to come back. But I just feel like Thomas is one guy who does need more playing time, but we just cannot be in the position where we are having to develop someone at the expense of the team. And I think a lot of people felt that even though Thomas showed growth, it's like, okay, let him grow as a backup option, not as a starter. So that's where Ward comes in.
No, am I back? Can you hear me?
You are. Yeah, I was just filling in while you were.
No, I just think it's funny. Like Trey Lance doesn't play, you're a starter. Aaron Banks doesn't play, you're a starter. Ambry Thomas comes on strong, plays in the playoffs, plays really well. Like, hey, you're gonna be in the bench this year. We got Trevarius. Sorry, but in the future, we might come back to you. It's like, dang. Anyway, it's that kind of business.
Thomas at this point is looking to push Mosley off the chart. True. Not because he's not going to push Ward.
George says, I feel so bad for Trey Lance being drafted to the Niners with this regime that didn't even want him. That's trying to replace him. They haven't even seen him play, and the whole NFL hating him. It hurts. Well, he's going to get the last laugh. I hope he will. It's possible.
I'm sure he will. Yeah, I don't think they hate him. I just think that they are not managing this situation well. You got to decide. So, are you all in on a rookie quarterback, or are you here for Jimmy Garoppolo? They just have to decide a direction. Maybe they have a direction. Maybe we're going to see something develop, but the market is getting thin.
So the Niners are focused on special teams. The Rams just upgraded their wide receiver core. They just brought in Allen Robinson to go along with Cooper Kupp and eventually Robert Woods and Tyler Higbee. That's a power move. What do you think of what the Rams have put together, and are the Niners equipped to cover it?
There's no doubt that Ward becomes a whole lot more important because now I feel like Allen Robinson will be facing Thomas. He might be lining up against Mosley, things like that. But at some point, our third corner is going to be lining up against someone like Allen Robinson. And I think there are worse places to be in this world than being Sean McVay, where your third receiver, your second receiver is Allen Robinson. I think it's a great move. I think he's a good receiver. I think he's played with some not so great quarterbacks in his time. And I think that I will never understand why he went to Chicago. I don't know what he saw there. I always thought that was a stupid move on his part, but now he's got a good coach and a decent quarterback who, although he has his ups and downs, he'll push the ball down the field. And that's why the Niners needed a corner that can atone for that. Because you also made a point earlier. What the Rams have done is expose the 49ers safeties even more. They will have to play a whole lot better than they did last year collectively. Jimmy Ward did good things last year, so it's no shade on him. But as for the rest of them, they're going to need to do a whole lot more. So this is high pressure on the weakest link of the 49ers defense. And that is exactly what the Rams are doing. They realize the Niners found a way to beat themselves, and we won a Super Bowl. If they come back and roll out the same game plan next year and execute it, they will win the Super Bowl, or at least go to it. So the Rams are like, okay, what is it we did to them that hurt them? Let's upgrade that. Let's keep that ball rolling. Stafford in year 2. Let's throw some more weapons at them and at their weakest link. So the Niners had to respond with Ward, and that might have almost been, that might go factor in that they understood that this would happen, that they had to throw money at this weakness. So the Rams have just put more pressure on the Niners where they're weakest. This is Rams versus 49ers, this division. It really is.
It is, absolutely. And like the Niners are, so invested in pass rush. They're all about pass rush over coverage. And the Rams are saying, cover us. They got to cover us.
Exactly.
Can you cover us? Okay, like you had the pass rush last year, but we beat you. We seem to have a formula that, they haven't beat the Niners much, but it works. And the Niners have to match up. So they're starting to get there.
Absolutely.
Kent loves when you hang out with us.
Awesome. Thank you. I would have been here sooner, but I just had to nurse this injury a little bit. But I've still been working out.
Allen Robinson, so money signs. That's what they did. I don't understand the logical truth. What you mean? I'm sorry. People haven't been proofreading their comments, and I'm just confused sometimes. But hey, one more topic. Russell Wilson's out of the NFC West. How does that affect the Niners standing in it? Is this a 2-team division?
It's a 2-team division. I have no faith in the coaching of the Cardinals or in Kyler Murray. I really don't. Kyler Murray has a lot of talent, but I just feel like that team is very dysfunctional. I feel like he's dysfunctional and he's a prima donna. And as an Oakland A's fan, good riddance to him.
Yes.
This is definitely between the Rams. It's not just the players of the teams because the Cardinals are loaded with talent. It's the coaches. This is not just a Niners versus Rams. This is McVay versus Shanahan. That's what it waters down to. Those guys are going to head-to-head. The Rams realize that Shanahan can actually beat them pretty much single-handedly. That's where these moves have gone. With Russell Wilson going out of the division, they are looking at Drew Lock. That's who they got. I don't know if all of you know who that is. You don't need to. But the Seahawks will have to draft a quarterback or buy one. There's no doubt they will have to do that. The Seahawks are done. And I don't know if they're going to keep Pete Carroll through this rebuild, but they are we're talking fire sale rebuild. Yes. It doesn't get worse. This is one of the worst trades, I think, in NFL history. I think the Broncos completely won this trade. That they could go out there and get Russell Wilson for what they did. And they sent a decent defensive lineman over there. What was it? Was it a tight end or something?
No offense. Yep.
Yeah, and Shelby is a good player. But those guys, they come and they go on a team. He's not gonna break through for the Seahawks and single-handedly turn them into the Legion of Boom. They got nothing, the Seahawks, for this. They really busted their franchise wide open by trading him for what they did. And I just don't see how Pete Carroll is going to survive a rebuild.
Yeah. Well, and on the one hand, it makes the 49ers division easier, but the Niners have to face the AFC West this year. So they still have to face Russell Wilson. And that AFC West, the Niners have to face every single team in it. The Raiders just got a lot better.
The Broncos are a top 3 defense in yards per game. So they were number 3 in yards per game, number 3 in points per game last year. They did that with lousy offensive play and quarterback. The time of possession, literally, they were like, oh, it's 3 and out. Okay, back out we go. Oh, it's 3 and out. Back out we go. Bad field position will hold them to a field goal. What would they have been with even Jimmy Garoppolo playing for them? They would have been the number 1 defense. They will probably be the number 1 defense. What is it? Patrick Surtain, he is going to go into his 2nd year, and he's already a dynamo. This is a good team.
They did lose something key in their defense, though. Fangio.
That's true. That's true.
We'll see what
that's true, but we'll see how much that impacts them. I suspect the new DC will come in and take that playbook and roll with it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, possible. It'll be interesting to see what the Fangio effect is. I'm not sure, but Niners have a tough schedule.
Sorry for Vic Fangio. I wish he'd gotten Russell Wilson at the helm.
Yeah. I just wonder if the Niners look at their schedule, this AFC West thing, their own division, they think, you know what, even though the NFC's down, this is not necessarily the right year to go all in. It would be smarter to go all in next year. Do you think they're saying
I said, I think they're basically saying, Trey Lance, if you want to have this Cinderella story, go out there and do it.
Prove it.
But until year 2, your real year 2, we're just going to let things roll. And that might be the attitude they're taking. You know what? That's not a bad attitude to take. I think when you're playing it safe, they still have Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Trent Williams. They still got Bosa. They still got all these names, Fred Warner. This is not a bad team at all. This is a great team. This is a playoff team. They will be going to the playoffs. They absolutely will.
They better.
But it's more like they want them to do an Eagles run to the Super Bowl. And if they can, that's awesome. Maybe somebody big gets injured on the Rams. Maybe Aaron Rodgers doesn't have go figure, another bad performance against the Niners.
Yeah.
Then
funny things happen.
These little things that happen, and suddenly, you're like those Eagles fans that are like, we're in the Super Bowl with a backup. We're going to win.
Or the Bengals. Or like, how did we do that? Why are we here in the Bengals?
So that they could repeat history, and that was to lose. But anyway, so that's what I think they're doing is they're basically saying, look, this is a good team. We're going to be competitive. We're going to sell some tickets. But bottom line is we know Jimmy Garoppolo's and everything about that situation is gone, and we'll have another draft to load up, and then we'll start getting first rounders back after that. They know that it's really year 2, 3, and 4 that the 49ers are actually going to have the flexibility and the firepower to really keep this going.
Abel says, would getting Austin Hooper help? Lance, in your opinion, do you think they could still land Matthew?
Tyron?
I don't think they need more receivers, like more tight ends. I think
absolutely not. Jawan Jennings and Deebo Samuel, I'm good with that.
They don't have enough targets to go around. They don't have enough targets for Kittle already, as it is. Matthew, yes, they should sign him. Do I think they will? No, because they are going with the youth movement this year. They are not all in for this year. They are a very good team that is also trying to be a little bit younger, and I think try to make their big push next year. That's the way I read it.
May I just point out, if we had dumped Jimmy Garoppolo or found a way to move him for anything at all, we'd have that cap space. We would have Tyrann Mathieu and Chandler Jones probably and Ward this year. It would have been possible to shift that around, and the Niners would have steamrolled the Super Bowl. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Adrian says
it really, when you start looking at when you start looking at it that way, it's weird.
Adrian says bittersweet. Niners wanted to hand Wilson-led Hawks a pair of L's and send him out that way and start Lance era in that fashion. Well, I see what you mean.
Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. He's going to go have a good career in Denver.
Joshua says, I can't stop thinking about how to upgrade the pass rush and keep Armstead inside. Need a D Ford replacement. Is there an option still out there? So Darius Smith. They're not going to do it. And that would sign him away from a good team as well, which would also be nice. That affects us in the postseason. Eugene says free agent signings have fortified special teams, improved a weak phase. Kyle Shanahan never prioritized special teams before. Safety, O-line, and we are pretty stacked. Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad, no. And there's nothing, both of us were saying there's nothing wrong with the good special teams. We all know Green Bay would be the first one to tell you what happens when you have a bad special teams. But still, it is reflective of almost back when the Niners had Chip Kelly and they addressed these fringe needs like that, essentially. And it was like, okay, these are solid. We're going to be solid in this phase. And in 2, 3, 4 years, it'll pay off. So that's that's all indicative of the fact that this is not the year, basically.
Yeah, Matt says, with any luck, the Browns will refuse to trade Baker to the AFC. Time to desperately trade the bum. Love you, Sybilla.
Well, thank you. Love right back at you.
Whew. All right, I got to go write a bunch of articles and do a bunch of work. This is free agency is terrible. I hate it. It's trash. 0 out of 5 stars. I'm trying to enjoy my weekend, and Jimmy Garoppolo is probably going to get traded tonight. Friday night, 5:30. I'm going to be like, fine.
So we were asking when he's going to be traded. Now we have an answer.
Yeah, probably right when I'm going out to dinner tonight on a Friday night. Thanks, Jimmy.
Awesome.
Jimmy's going to ruin my night before he's going to ruin one more of my night.
Hey, if he knows you're going out on a date with all the date cracks you and I have made at him, he's going to get you back.
I'm telling you. Rib, thank you very much. I'll see you guys later. If Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded, we'll talk then. Have a great weekend. I'll be around.